All right, it's 3 o'clock, so I'll call to order the regularly scheduled Hutchinson Utilities Commission meeting. Today is Wednesday, September 29th. The first agenda item that we have is the declaration of any conflicts of interest by the commissioners. Don?
I have none.
Bob, any? All right, I have none. Second agenda item is to approve the consent agenda, which involves the approval of the minutes and the ratification of payment of bills.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
A motion by Bob and a second by Don. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Approved financial statements. Jared, turn that over to you and Jeremy.
I don't have much. The monthly ones were pretty consistent, so I thought I'd just touch on a couple of the year-to-dates, like on the electric, the difference between the budgets on a couple. You can see we have way more sales, but also that the purchase power to increase that, as well as the generator fuels, we've generated more this year. Transmission's up quite a bit compared to the year before, and one other thing, depreciation's up because we started generating, or put the new generator started depreciating this year, so that's part of the bigger differences on the year to date. Gas, kind of the same thing. Biggest difference year to date is just the whole February extra cost there that month, so otherwise we're pretty close there too. And like I said, August was pretty comparable, so nothing major to report.
Just going to add a little bit more detail to some of the August stuff. I've kind of been keeping you guys abreast of what's been going on in the market sales. Obviously, through August year to date, we're at about 900,000 market sales this year. Last year, through the same time, we were only at 205,000 in market sales. So we're substantially higher, obviously, with the increased loads in the not only in our community, but just in the Midwest and around the country with the heat. We were able to push a lot more power into the market. Because of that, consequently on the other side, with the market purchases, where we're buying off the market, we've had just over 1.1 million in purchases off the MISO market this year. Relative to last year, we're only at 639,000, so we're not quite double what we're typically seeing as far as purchases, but again, our loads are up, and so obviously the way we kind of fill a gap from our baseload contract is either buying it off the market or self-generating for our hedging program, so those pieces are up. The one thing to just keep in mind when you look at the purchase power, even though our purchase power expenses are up from MISO, we had that reduction from our MRS adder, membership adder this year. Last year, if you guys recall, that was the last year where we had that membership adder in, so that this year saved us 439,000. So you take that out, but the increase in market purchases, we're roughly in the same ballpark as we were last year. Just the makeup is a little bit different. On the generating side of things, kind of looked at, Dan and I kind of talked about the generating hours for the month. Just again, give you guys an idea, we had 6,002 megawatt hours worth of generation in August. 1,692 hours of that went into the market for market sales, and then the other 4,310 megawatt hours was basically for our hedging program. So that equates to about 72% of our generating for the month of August was for our own community to offset what the market pricing was doing. So sometimes we have more market sales where the load is lower, we can push a lot into the market. This year, August, as we had in a couple other months, we were using primarily most of that generation to offset the higher market prices. So just wanted to give you an idea of kind of the mix from generation side of things. From the unit standpoint, they were all pretty balanced. Of the 6,000 megawatt hours roughly we generated, 25% of those hours came from Unit 1, 22% came from our Unit 5, Wärtsilä, 18% came from Unit 6, and 35% came from Unit 7. So you can see we have a good mix, and we've tried to balance running all of our generating units and keeping some consistent hours on each one of those. So had a good mix there. Kind of the last stat I'll give you is the average price of our generation for the month of August was $29.56. Our average MISO price that we sold in the market for was $58.74. So we were just under 99% margin increase on that. So market prices again, were high, and so where we could get some market purchases, we did, but primary, most of it was to offset our hedging program. So those models are working well in times when we have high heat and high market prices and transmission costs and things of those nature. So just kind of some things there. And then the only thing I would touch on the gas side, if you guys have kind of been looking back at previous months worth of financial statements, you can see obviously we're trending in the upward position as far as our gross margin percentage. Obviously, we all know what happened in February. Since then, we've been obviously building back through our billing cycle, and so those things getting back that gross margin towards the end of the year. So right now we're at 28.4%. We started out at 7.3 at the end of February. So if our trajectory continues where we're adding 2 to 3% margin a month, we'll be right back into that HUC target of 37 to 42% margin. So the point I want to make there is we're moving back in that direction with increasing battery stabilization fund back to the 600,000 and getting us back to a gross margin in that range. It won't be as high as what we've typically had in the past couple of years. We're in that 49.50, but we should be right at that, low end of that 37, 38%, depending on how the fall and November, December. So the big takeaway was where the trajectory is heading in the right direction based on how we're billing and how we're adding back to that rate stabilization fund. Otherwise, kind of those are the main kind of items I just wanted to point out to you. Otherwise, things are tracking pretty well for the most part. And then the only thing that Jared and I have been talking about is, as we look at some of our cash balance and look at what we have sitting in banks and what we have investing, if there's some opportunities to continually add some investment income in through adding some more dollars into some of our investments, we're going to try to leverage that. Obviously, with lower interest rates, we're not going to quite see the interest earnings that we've seen over the last several years, and so we're going to try to blend that with what we're getting locally with the banks and stuff. So we're kind of watching those things, but overall the investments are doing well, and obviously a lot of those things we have in the long-term investment strategy that we don't need the idle cash right away, and so we're doing better than some of the short-term market stuff now with some of that stuff, which I'm sure you guys are well aware of as you look at that stuff. So, any questions on any of the financials at this point?
No, none for me.
Okay.
All right, if there's no further questions or discussion, I'd ask for a motion to approve the financial statements.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Don, seconded by Bob to approve the financial statements as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Financial statements are approved. Next agenda item is the open forum, and I don't see anybody here from the public to address the commission, so in the absence of that, we'll move on to item number 5, communication, starting with the city administrator, Matt. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Not a whole lot, finishing up projects from the city standpoint. We're in the middle of budget season and preliminary tax levies. One thing I guess to note is that we talked about utility rate increases, or not increases, but changes from the city. We're holding off on doing that until 2023, just so we can better educate the public on what the changes will be. So otherwise, that's about it. So.
Thank you, Matt. Divisions, Dan, start over there.
We're in the home stretch on the Plant 2 substation project. Been working on that pretty hard the last 2 months. We're hoping to have it up around Labor Day. That's timeline slipped, so it looks like here in the next few weeks, or hopefully before the end of October. That's what we're hoping for now. So we've got some people scheduled to come out, and that'll happen the next few weeks to do the commissioning. But we're 99% done with the wiring and the install, and the equipment finally showed up that we're waiting for on Monday. So now we can finish, but be good when it's done.
Jeremy mentioned the investments. I'll just mention that we are going to invest in an annuity this coming month, something we haven't done before, just to try and increase, so get some sort of return. It's not a lot, but it's still better than what we have. Ran it past the auditor, so we're good on that.
It was allowable within the investment policy?
Yes. I'm good.
Just kind of an update on the solar project. It's basically complete. They've kind of moved all of their excess stuff out of there now. They're bringing in a a crew next week to do the testing. They have to do all the testing and everything like that, and they'll come back on the week of the 11th to commission it, is the plan, to kind of get it fired up and start seeing it work, so that's what we're looking at right now.
Do you plan a community ribbon cutting or something like that?
Yeah, that was something you guys should take a look at and see what your schedule looks like mid-October, the end of October. And then I did mention at the EDA meeting, we would let the city know and the EDA, so if some people want to represent those two agencies, they can certainly come and do that. So take a look at your guys' schedule and let me know what works. And we could do it over lunch, we could do it in the morning, we could do it in the evening, just whatever works for you guys. But that is the plan. And I think you were going to work with Caterpillar Ziegler to see if they could have some representation too.
Yeah, they'll have representation there. Yeah, so will Hunt Electric.
Good. Commissioners, do you want Angie to push out a couple, 2, 3, 4 options for dates?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Be good.
Yeah.
Will do.
How about from the city side, Matt, or is there any certain times that work better for anyone that wants to partake from those agencies?
You know, just trying to think. Probably afternoons, but you're just better off probably picking a date. And we'll make it. Somebody from the city will be there. So.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, Dave. John?
I really don't have anything new today.
All right.
Pretty slow.
Human Resources.
I have nothing, but Angie has a few updates.
Angie, go ahead.
Right. So right now I'm working with Ann from Baker Tilly on our compensation study. She's working on compiling all the information from the public utilities surveys that I collected and sent her way. So they're working on compiling those, should have results in the next couple of weeks, hopefully before the strategic planning meeting in October. I'm also working with Rich at Westland Associates for our insurances. I did receive quotes back on our AD&D life and LTD insurance, and there are no changes with those, so those are staying status quo. And now currently working on dental and health insurance.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep.
Mark, anything from a legal perspective?
No.
All right, General Manager Jeremy.
Just a couple of things at the federal level. We're watching, obviously, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the Build Back Better Act. That's being talked about at the federal level. The big item that's really impactful on the utility side of things is the House has proposed what they call this Clean Electricity Performance Plan, CEPP, where essentially, in a nutshell, they're going to incentivize utilities to push more renewables out, and if they meet certain renewable standards, they're eligible to receive grants from the Department of Education or Department of Energy that they can roll back into infrastructure and different things that they can provide to their customers. On the flip side, if they don't meet the requirements, which is a 4% increase annually year over year on renewable percentages in your supply, then they're going to penalize you. And so obviously, I've been a part of a lot of conversations already with APPA, and obviously that's just a deal breaker for most public utilities. A lot of utilities don't have any control over their power supply. A lot of that's at the wholesale level, and so one of the big concerns is a local utility. Take us as an example, where 75% of our power comes from MRES. If they're not willing to meet those obligations or make those obligations, we get the penalty for not meeting those requirements and then get penalized. So they're going to look to rework some of the wording with the House. I can tell you right now, I was in a Senate hearing, and that's a deal breaker for them. I don't think anyone on the Senate side at the federal level is going to support this program, but it's a way that I think they're going to start trying to meet in the middle somewhere in relation to that. Some of the standards and some of the requirements they're trying to roll out are just unattainable in the short term. And so that's something that we need to be watching here, particularly for us, because again, we don't have control over all of our power supply. We're basically contracts, so that's a concern that we just have to watch from that perspective. Some of those other things, part of that act, as we've talked a little bit about earlier, the investment tax credit, production tax credits are positive things. Those are going to look like they're going to pass through and be eligible for public utilities. If you recall in the past, those have been things that only the private sector were able to take advantage of and be eligible for. So what that means to us is if we move forward with some additional renewable projects in the future, if those things pass this year, we'll be eligible for whatever that percentage is, 26%, 30% investment tax credit back. How they're proposing to run that mechanism is just a direct grant or a direct payment back to the utility. So as an example, with this project up here, if we would have been eligible for those, we would have cut our cost by about $300,000 on that project. It would have made it even more affordable. So those are some positive things coming out of the federal level, that they're pushing public utilities to be on the same playing field with the private entities. One thing that we'll kind of watch too is the production tax credit. If we want to, at some point, obviously we have a constraint on land, but if we want to build things and take advantage of production tax credits that we could provide to other communities or other utilities in the region, that's an incentive to build renewables. So we'll have to watch those things. And then the other kind of piece that's floating around out there is the ability to do advanced refunding. Again, that was in place about 5 years ago. They took that off the table with about 5 years ago through congressional policy and change of law. That is looking like it's coming back and has a bunch of headway to allow those things to continually happen again too. The overall grand scheme of that whole piece is that reduce the cost of projects, infrastructure build out, because at the end of the day, it's the consumer that pays for that stuff. So the cheaper that they can put those things in place, the overall direct impact to the consumer, in theory, is supposed to be lower. So the other couple pieces related in this project are just proposing rolling out a bunch of money for infrastructure build out, electric vehicle infrastructure build out, modernization of the grid, and some of those other types of things. There may be some advantages or some opportunities that we can take advantage of certain things. There may be some things that we just won't be able to take advantage of, but we'll kind of watch those things if it finally passes Congress and the Senate comes to some middle ground with this proposal. So those are kind of the big things going on. At the federal level, I did give you guys an update, kind of just some housekeeping things internally going on. The other piece I would throw out to you is I've had a couple inquiries within the community, one from the school district and one from several citizens of taking a downtown utility plant tour. I know we had talked about that pre-pandemic, where some of the commissioners that have been on board haven't had a chance to go through the buildings down there and see some of the new units. I know some of the council members have expressed some opportunity to go through that. I think the first time we looked at doing that, we were into construction with the new units, and so it was a construction zone, so we said, let's wait till that's done. And then the second time came around where we had the pandemic and something happened. So if you guys have some interest, or someone has some interest in going through the plant and looking at the new units and seeing the tour, I would expect doing something in October, November, and I would coordinate some date with the school district. They want to bring their electricity class through the plant, and then a couple other citizens, and we would just set an open meeting if we have more than 2 commissioners there, and kind of do it all at one time versus having multiple tours coming through there. So let me know if you have interest in that in the next month or so. It'll be a little bit slower. Obviously, we're getting into the spring. We're not going to be running as much. That was the other piece I communicated, is I don't want to give tours while the engines are running and it's super loud and you can't hear anything. And so maybe we can pick a day when maybe we're not running or whatever else and do that. So just keep that in your mind. But I have been getting a few inquiries about running through that plan for educational purposes and kind of seeing that stuff. So that's what I got.
Thank you, Jeremy. Agenda item 6 is policy. We'll start with 6A, policy review. There's 5 policies there with no recommended changes. Any commissioners have questions or feedback for Jeremy on that?
I do not.
No changes requested, so we'll move on to 6B. Approve changes to 2 policies, disconnection of residential services by HUC and also disconnection of commercial services by HUC. Jeremy, is that you?
Yeah, so in both of these policies, we're just looking to change the shall to may. One of the driving reasons why we want to just make sure we have a little bit more flexibility and discretion here within customer service and staff, as we've had over the last several years, particularly some landlords looking to use us as their eviction entity and trying to evict people by shutting them off. And I'm sure, as you guys know, or Mark and I have talked about that, renters have some safety precautions and some legal rights when they're renting units. And so typically we use our own discretion. We kind of know what's going on in some of those situations, and most customers, I'd say, are pretty upfront about why they're looking for us to turn them off. But we want to make sure that our policies are mirroring up with what we're actually doing here. And so obviously, Mark and I have talked about, requirements, landlord requirements, tenants requirements, and what protections they have under the Minnesota law. And so we just want to tweak these two to let people know, if they look at our policies, that it's by discretion based on what the circumstance is. So we thought we better update those.
Any questions on the proposed changes to the two policies?
None. I'll make the motion to approve the policy changes to the disconnection of residential and commercial services.
I'll second that motion.
A motion by Bob and seconded by Don to approve the policy changes as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Policy changes are approved. We have nothing on the agenda for unfinished business, so we'll go into new business. Declare an open meeting for Hutchinson Utility Commission's strategic planning, which will be held on Wednesday, October 27th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Jeremy?
It seemed like the best date that worked for most people. Obviously, we're trying to be cognizant of not taking up too much of your guys' time with multiple meetings around the end of the month, so we thought that may be the best day to kind of knock out the strategic planning meeting and then roll right into the normal commission meeting on that day. I think we're going to look to try to have it up here, probably be in this room. We'll set up some tables kind of in a circle and have that strategic planning meeting. So, like I did mention, I did ask you guys if you have certain things and topics you want me to put on the list. Obviously, I'll mirror that stuff up with meeting with the managers and talking about what we see coming down the pike and things we should talk about. And then I would look to get something out to you guys probably 2 weeks before the strategic planning meeting, and then if that spurs some additional thoughts or things you want added to certain sections of those strategic planning topic areas, then I'll certainly add those and we can have this conversation. So I'm saying 11 to 3. It may not take as long, as depends on how long the discussions go on some of the areas and some of the topics. If we adjourn early, we can adjourn early and have some time between the 3 o'clock meetings. So if that works for you guys to have it up here, 11 to 3, we can certainly shoot for that.
The meeting that day, I think it makes sense.
Do I have a motion to declare that an open meeting?
I will make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
A motion by Don, seconded by Bob, to set an open meeting for our Wednesday, October 27th from 11 to 3. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Agenda item 8B, approve setting a committee for union negotiations. So it's you, Jeremy.
So as you guys know, our union contract expires at the end of this year. We were in a 2-year contract this last go around. So we've typically have set employer union a negotiating committee on our side to represent the administration side of things. And so obviously I want to get ahead of that. I did talk with Mike at the union. He's anticipating getting back their topics for negotiation and conversation and thought probably sometime by mid-October is what he has relayed to the union personnel, people on that side. So I just want to make sure we're ahead of that and have our committee already assigned and put together so that when we start getting feedback and we start looking at scheduling and when we can all get together, we can certainly do that. Historically, it's been 2 commissioners from the board, myself, Brenda's been a part of that, HR, and then Susan Hanson, who's our labor attorney, has been part of that. So if we want to keep that same structure, I would ask, since there's only 3 of you here, 2 of the 3, if you're interested in sitting on that, I'd certainly want to form that today. If all 3 of you want to sit on that, or 1 of you wants to sit on it, it's certainly open to you guys. But obviously it would be nice to have obviously some representation again from the board as part of those union negotiations.
I thought we discussed it once earlier, and I know I volunteered, and I thought Matt did. I might be making that up with him, but I'm willing. But
Okay.
I think we could tell him he's going to do it too.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
He's gone, so
Right.
that's how it works, right?
It's better than being voluntold.
Yeah, I've done it 2 or 3 times, I think. So it might, and with my terms coming up in a couple of years, it might be good to have somebody else gain some experience on it. So I think that probably makes sense now. Can you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, Trish, you take a formal motion. I can't remember if we did that in the past or not.
You probably should.
Just to formalize it.
All right.
That way Matt can't back out.
Right.
Put her in minutes.
I'll make a motion that myself and Matt serve on the negotiations committee on behalf of the board, along with Jeremy, Brenda, and the labor attorney.
Yeah, and I'd actually probably put Angie in there as well, since she's
And
becoming more.
I'll second that.
Motion by Don and seconded by Bob to set the committee. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Matt's opportunity to do not, no, he's not here, so motion is approved.
I'm pretty sure we talked about it, so.
I know we did have.
All right, committee
Yeah,
set.
we
Thank
I don't feel like I'm completely throwing him under the bus.
Anything else under new business?
How's the Randy's replacement coming?
Well, we had the application, we went through the applications, just a quick review, they have to be scored now. We got 11 resumes, but only 9 full applications. As I kind of mentioned, not quite what I was anticipating getting. Of course, I knew that was going to be kind of an odd type of position with, people that have experience in that industry. They're getting close to retirement age too, and a lot of them I don't think want to travel. And we posted it out there in a lot more areas than what we typically would. We posted out there nationally, we posted out there in all the major private sector areas like Indeed and Sallows. And I think that's just the sign of the times that we're in, particularly in this industry. We're going to continually have, I think, a struggle attracting, high talented people in these types of management positions. I think part of it's location, part of it's people aren't willing to move, part of it's going to be the pay structure. Those types of people, they're already working for large organizations, and so I think we'll just have a struggle with that moving forward. So obviously that behooves us to make sure we have good training internally so that we can fill in the gaps in the interim, and so we have good people here. If we don't go internally, that can help the external candidate coming in, but we'll see where it goes. We've had some internal candidates that have posted forward, and we'll mirror those against the external and put the best person in the position. So. Otherwise,
Any other questions or other items under new business?
Nothing for me?
All right, if none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Motion by Bob and seconded by Don to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.